Hello everyone, my name is Sick and welcome to the second behind the scenes video that I'm doing for the ArmA free Eden editor series. So, this is the first mission that I actually made for the Tanoa terrain when it first came out, and this is a very basic mission. It's very very short, and also there's not a lot of freedom for the player. Basically, you're following a squad leader who is an AI in this case. And yeah, I'll just take you through it step by step. So we just start on the road in our vehicle over here, and all the objectives that are linked up to the player character. We are playing as the CSAT faction. For some reason this guy looks like he's dead, which is very strange. But yeah, I'm one of the guys in the back here. And as soon as the mission starts, we have over here, I made sure that the mission we'll start with some intro text from headquarters. So this is the first trigger that starts. It checks for up for being present, just because of these guys, which are the characters that show you the radio name, basically. So if I open one of these guys, his group ID is set to Sergeant Colin. So if I call for SL, or actually let's go to HQ here. So we have a HQ. This set group ID headquarters, right? If I then go into one of these triggers, you can see that HQ, side chat, oh, blah blah blah. Basically, okay, listen up, armadillo, etc., etc. Right? So I'm calling this little command line calls for this guy to say this text, and when he does, you will actually see the name headquarters to the bottom left of the screen as people talk. Right? So we have that over here. Okay, listen up, armadillo. There's no secret, enemy hides in the jungle, etc., etc. With play sound HQ true, so that it will play at full volume inside of the vehicle. Without this specific command, that does not work. You can say play sound and then just the name of the sound that you want to be played, but it will have a different volume whether you're inside or outside a car. Right? But with this command, it will play at the same volume inside and outside of vehicles. And that basically goes on. Like we have HQ goes on because there's too much text for only one of these command lines to display. So I had to break it up into little pieces, right? So then we get the follow-up after 7 seconds. Then there's another follow-up, etc., etc. It goes just down the line until the end of the speech, basically. And by the time the HQ is finished, the player will have moved with his squad past Imoni, Imon, not sure how you're going to say that one, and they will exit somewhere around here by the time HQ is actually finished talking. And so you just follow the waypoints, basically, or you follow the squad leader who follows the waypoints, right? And I have some goats here. That's an animal module. It says it has to spawn 3 goats, which you can just place down and it will take care of everything else by itself. And I placed an invisible helipad, which I called goat sound. And the reason for that is it's somewhere in one of the triggers as well, is that this invisible helipad will play a sound. And the sound is that of goats, which is a 3D sound. So as you walk by, you can hear goats making sounds and noises, but as you move off into the jungle, they will grow quiet again and you won't hear it anymore. It's probably in one of these, actually let's have a look. Not in that one, maybe in the last one? Nope. Nope. Let's see. Nope, not in that one. Alright, interesting. Maybe... No, it's also not in the waypoint trigger. Now I'm not entirely sure anymore which place it's on. It might actually be in the init.sqf inside of the mission folder. So I'm going to have a look there actually when we get finished going through all of this. As you can see, of course, Tanoa is a jungle terrain, and all of these trees, they obscure the mission quite a bit. It's kind of hard to see what's going on everywhere. So if you hold down Control plus G, you can actually disable all of the trees. And now you can see there's a little dirt path going through the jungle, and basically the waypoints, they connect up with the bends, right? We have another little trigger here, which is just a little sound file to be played, basically. So it says, okay, file formation, stay close and keep a lookout, play sound B1. And we're no longer in a vehicle, so here play sound is actually okay. Because I know for sure that we are not going to be in a vehicle here. Right, and that's actually okay up until the last bit of the mission. Like, there's no getting back into vehicles anymore at this point. So that we continue on. These movement waypoints, they do change the behavior of the squad. So at some point they're going into the limited speed in a file formation, so that they can actually follow each other down this path. And this is an interesting thing as well, because you would think that if you use this waypoint to call for this behavior, it would only start after you've reached this, but that's not actually true. The behavior in this waypoint actually starts from this waypoint, right? So as soon as you finish this waypoint and get assigned a new one, that's when the new behavior comes into play as well. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. And then we go on, we go further into the jungle, and then we go through this cool little overhanging area with the rocks. There's some more text that's basically the player characters saying it sure is pretty up here, and the sound being played. And after a few seconds, the squad leader will reply, "And deadly, keep your eyes open, damn you." Right? And then you continue on until you reach this bend here, and we have another little bit here that says, "Okay, diamond formation, get set for contact." And I've actually linked this up with this waypoint, with this waypoint over here, which means that this trigger gets activated as soon as you reach this waypoint, and not before. Alright, and then we go on through the jungle, and here's another interesting little bit. Okay, and if you've played this mission, you might actually recognize this. This is a place that is booby-trapped, actually. So you can see the path goes in between these two big rocks. There is an tripwire mine down here called Mine 1, which is kind of hard to see. And I've seen some playthroughs of people playing this mission, and they were just kind of freaking out, just looking everywhere, and just like, I can't find this tripwire, but it's actually in this little clump of grass over here. And so basically, by the time you get here, I wanted several things to happen. I wanted the player's squad to stop, because I don't want them to run into the tripwire by accident. And after they stop, I wanted a new task to be created and assigned, right? So the main character of the squad leader actually usually gets into this trigger area first, which is called Mine Spot 1. And you can see it checks for Up4 being present, as we are playing as the Up4 in this case. And then it says, our squad leader says, "Whoa, hold up, there's a trip mine ahead. Gabber, go ahead and disable it." And then the next part is actually quite important. It says E1, disable AI, move. Right? And that makes sure that the character called E1, and like all of the characters in my squad are called E1, E2, E3, and then I am A1, I think. But the other people in my squad will be disabled from moving in any direction. Right? So as soon as one of these Up4 characters enters this trigger area, everybody will just come to an immediate standstill, and they will not be able to move again until you call for them to be able to move again in another trigger. But then we go on to Mine Spot number 2, which activates after Mine Spot 1 has been activated. This one will wait for 3 seconds, and then it will set my squad members into the crouched position by set unit pos middle. Okay, so these guys will stop after 3 seconds, they will take a crouch, and usually they will be stretched out along the pathway. And if you walk into this and you see that happening, it actually looks really cool, as they just like come to an immediate standstill because they see a booby trap, and then they take a crouch after a few seconds, just because like they have to be ready for enemy contact, but they want to stay out of sight as much as possible. It's just something that was really cool for immersion for me anyway. Something that I really enjoyed setting up and seeing in action. Right, and then finally you have the trigger Mine Spot, which doesn't really do anything, except I use it for because with Mine Spot 1 it activates the new task, which is the task disable the tripwire. Right, so this gets activated, and then after 5 seconds this module will be activated, which is the assigned state. So first the create task will be created, and then after 5 seconds it will be assigned as the new objective. And then of course we have the other module that calls for the succeeded state. And that's linked up with this little trigger over here. And this little trigger actually checks to see if mine 1 is still active. So this is a little cool little script that you can use to check for specific mines being active or not. It's just simple exclamation point, mine active, and the name of the mine. And as soon as I have disabled the trip mine, A1, which is the player character, will say tripwire disarmed and play the sound. Then we go on to the next one. This is just looking to see if this armed 1 has been activated, and if it has been, then after 4 seconds the squad leader will say, those sneaky motherfuckers, okay, let's move around these rocks for now. And this is where all of my player characters are enabled or given back the ability to move around again, because now the danger is gone. And also, equally as important, is the set unit pos to auto, because you could set them up to low or prone. I'm not sure not entirely sure what it was called anymore, but with auto they can dictate their own stance, right? So they are given full control over what kind of cover they want to take and what kind of stance they're going to take inside of that cover, and otherwise they would just be stuck in this one position all the time. They would, for example, if I just say full or up, actually, yeah, so it's up and down. Yeah, so down is prone, up is standing up. Then they would never be able to go prone again, and they would never be able to go crouched again. They would just be standing up all the time. But with auto, they can take any stance they want. Right. Now we continue on with disarmed 3, which is it will save the game after a few seconds. And this is also, I have a few triggers here that says chicken sound save 3D chicken, because we are getting pretty close to the encampments, or one of the encampments that we have to take in this mission as one of the objectives. And there are a few chickens walking around, and I wanted them to have some 3D sound as well. So this is where that gets activated. Chicken sound, which is another invisible helipad, I believe, and it will say in 3D the sound called chicken. Right, and then let's see, what else do we have here? Ah, okay, so this is the same thing, except this one is going to wait for 280 seconds before being activated again, because I'm not sure how long it's going to take for the player to clear out the first objective and move on and all that stuff. So once the trigger or the chicken sound is finished, I want to play it again. Right, I don't want them to just go completely silent after a while. And then let's see, we get to the first objective, and there's a lot of things going on here, but it's really pretty basic, right? We have a lot of people and a lot of objects, which are all the yellow things over here, to dress up the mission a little bit. We have our animal module, which calls for 3 chickens to be spawned here, and they will just move around and have some animations and stuff. And this is also something that's really interesting with this mission that I discovered, I think right after, or not right after, but during the creation of this mission, is that you can have idle animations, other than just where they just stand with their weapons pointed down and they just look around a little bit after a while. But there are different animations that you can have, and I call for some of these on these guys. So this one is just like it's an ambient animation, but it is combat interruptible, and that's very important, because usually ambient animations, they cannot be interrupted, and if you shoot someone, they would die, but they would continue to play the animation, and it's just really, really bad. It doesn't look good. It's only good for building up bases that you know are never going to be attacked, you know, and that you just want to look more immersive. But the ambient combat animations, they are actually interruptible for the right at the second where they see an enemy, right? And there's not a whole lot of them. There's a few different ones. So this one is called stand, and then maybe this one probably has a different one, watch 2, right? So yeah, watch 2 is just like him. I think he has his weapon down and he just like turns around a few times and looks in different directions and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as he sees an enemy, he will go out of this animation and he will resume his regular AI behavior, which is taking cover, taking shots at enemy, all that kind of thing. And yeah, so that's something you could really do. That's quite nice. Like for example, this other guy, he has sit low, so he's actually sitting on the rocks with his back against the wall over there. and he will get up as soon as he sees any enemies getting near, right? So there's a few different triggers here. Inside the building, I had a little flavor thing going on here with a Sapphire, which is of course the machine gun that belongs to the Opfer side. And these are independent guys. They're just a guerrilla force, or like just a paramilitary force for the drugs cartel. So they really should not have the Sapphire here, right? So I had a little trigger that as soon as the player gets into this list, it will say, how the fuck did they get a Sapphire? Right? And this is something you could easily miss, but if you walk up to this thing and actually look at it, then it's something that could be nice and flavorful. You know, it's like something, a little bit of extra attention to detail, basically. Same thing with, you know, the table and the fork and the knife and the plates and the tactical bacon, right? Let's see. Tactical bacon, that's it. A few beds and all that stuff. But the real meat here is, let's see, up for detected. Oh, this is something else. So if independent forces see up for forces, the units called B1 and B2 will go into the middle position. And I think B1 and B2 are these guys over here. Yeah, B1, oh, that's B2. This is B1. So if an enemy gets seen inside of this radius, these guys will actually take a kneel. And that's actually really cool, because otherwise they would go prone, right? And if they go prone, they don't really move, and they don't really shoot because they can't see you. But now they are actually behind perfect cover. They can take a kneel and they can still shoot over it, and it's very believable. And it's also hard as hell if you don't expect the enemy to behave in this way, which most people don't, because that's not what the AI usually does, right? And then clear 1 is when everybody else is dead. Independent is no longer present. A1 side chat, looks like we've got them all. I'm getting ready to blow the cache, move aside. And then this is also the point where E1, E2 and E3, which are my squad mates, are allowed to take damage again, because this is something I wanted to have as well, to make sure that I have some people left for the final objective, because this place with these guys behind cover and people in the buildings and everything, it's kind of hard. You know, it's a little bit too hard maybe for the AI to handle. So I wanted to make sure that the player had the squad leader left and that he still had orders to follow and all that stuff. So yeah, that's something that's going on there. And then finally we have a few triggers over here. This is the weapons cache that the player is tasked with blowing up. So there's 2 weapons caches that you have to blow up. One is here, the other one is further down in the map. And this will check for cache 1, 2 and 3 to see if they're still alive or not destroyed or are destroyed, right? And when they get blown up, the squad leader will say, well done, private. That sound will be played. And we go on to caches 1A, which is this one I think is linked up with the assigned state of my last objective right there. So once I finish this objective, then after 5 seconds the other one will be assigned automatically, and then the game will be saved by this last trigger over here, right? So that's all pretty basic. And of course the caches 1 is linked up with our objective, or the succeeded module, to our objective 1 over here. And this one, oh, it's the destination for the module. Let's see. It's this one. This one is assigned, and this one is not linked up to anything. So this is the only. This is the first objective the player has, and it is assigned automatically at the start of the mission, or it's assigned already in the briefing, because it's not linked up to any triggers. It will be assigned automatically, right? And finally, this is also something that I made sure would happen. These guys will not move past this waypoint until the trigger clear 1 has been activated, right? Which is this trigger over here. So everybody else in this territory has to be dead before they can move on from the little village. And when they do, they will move over to this waypoint over here, and they will wait for the trigger caches 1 to be activated. And caches 1 is the trigger that checks to see if our weapons caches have been blown up. Okay, and this is important because I did not want the AI to hang around the village, because these buildings, they can get blown up. It will not contain the explosion. And so it's important to make sure that the player or the player squad is not inside the little village or, you know, in the vicinity of these houses anymore when you blow it up. So they will move past it into the jungle, and then they will wait here until you blow them up before moving on. And they will move on a little further down into the jungle before this trigger activates, which is a simple chat message that says, okay, let's prevent any more surprises and cut through the jungle here. Because obviously, you know, previously in the mission we had a booby trap there, and they don't want to find another booby trap on one of these jungle paths anymore, because technically you could follow this path down to the last objective, but from here he just wants to cut through the jungle. So we go down the hillside over here, move through all of these trees and the thick foliage, and it's really quite thick foliage, as you can see. If I turn the trees back on, it's hard to see everything that's going on here. And yeah, at some point you walk through this trigger here, which is quite wide. As you can see, it's really long. That's just to make sure that the player's squad will move through it, without a doubt. And it's just a bit of flavor text again. It says, I don't like this, we could bump into those bastards behind every tree set by the player. And the sound being played, of course. Then we have Jungle Chat 2. Squad leader replies, shut up private. And the sound being played. And this is also where the object called music, which is a radio, I think, will play in 3D the sound called Latin music, which is like 3 songs that I took from Tropico 1, I believe, and added together, and they will start playing once the player reaches the area of this trigger. And then the same thing will happen again, but 575 seconds after the other one. So after Jungle Chat 3 has been activated, it will play music or Latin music in 3D after 575 seconds. Because again, I don't know how long the player is going to take with clearing out the last objective, and I don't want the music to just stop, right? So we have another move trigger here, and then finally we are making it to the last objective. And there's a few triggers over here as well. And let's see, this is clear. So this is another thing that checks to see if all the independent units in this area are dead. And it will say, all clear, alright you lots, move off to the side so I can blow the cache. Let's see, there is Goats 1, which is, okay, so it's not in the init.sqf, it's actually over here. I don't know why I did not do this in a different trigger at the start of the mission, along with everybody else. You know, with the HQ message at the start of the mission, I could have put this down there as well, but during the creation of this mission, I probably did not think about that anymore. So I have a trigger over here that will make sure that the goats play. This one will trigger at the start of the very mission. Independent presence inside of the trigger area, which will be this guy. And this guy is actually quite interesting as well, because there's he's in one of these. He will spawn in one of these 3 different rooms or closets. I think they're supposed to be toilets of some kind. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But if I jump into the map, let's see. Yeah, there we go. So we have a few markers. Marker spawn 1, spawn 2, and his original position, and he's linked up with those. Right? You can select one of these, go to connect, and then set random start, and then you can connect them up to different spawn markers, basically. And these spawn markers, they have been made invisible through the init.sqf, so the player will never see these. Right? And of course there's markers over here as well for the cache, over here, the cache over there, and yeah, so that's it. There will always be a guy in one of these rooms, but you don't know exactly in which one he will be. Every time he could be in this one, he could be in that one, he could be in that one, so you cannot really have any expectations, really. You have to be careful every time you open the door. You know, you cannot get into a rut, basically. Right, so we have a guy patrolling here, and I edited his loadout personally. I wanted him to have an M14, so he's a marksman, and he will just walk around on the porch. And every waypoint, it has like a random time of waiting, a waypoint timer, which is set between 5 and 12 seconds, and he will pick a random time in between these settings, basically. And finally we have our last trigger, which is caches number 2. which checks to see if cache 4, 5 and 6 are still alive. And if they are blown up, then this is linked up with our objective, of course, the set task state of succeeded for our second objective. And also I had delete vehicle music, and of course that vehicle is actually, let's see, I think, no, it's not that one. Now I'm curious. Let's see in our I'm not sure if you can see it in here at a hurry either. It would be nice if you could filter this for named named objects and non-named objects, but there's no real possibility for that. But anyway, there's something here called here it is, Helipad invisible called music. And so when this objective gets blown up, the invisible helipads will be deleted, which will stop all music from being played, right? Because it would be kind of weird if you blow up this entire building and then the music just keeps going. That just doesn't make any sense. So when the vehicle gets deleted, or the helipad gets deleted, the music will stop being played. And then finally, I had the same thing happen here as well. We have a move trigger from the player squad, which will wait until clear 2 has been activated. And once it has been activated, he will move to the next waypoint over here. And again, he will wait for the trigger called ending 1 to be activated before moving on from this waypoint. And this waypoint, I've made sure, of course, again, I wanted my player squad to be away from the explosion radius, because I really don't want the player having to blow up his objective and then friendly units being caught in the explosion, which causes the AI to see the player as a threat to itself. Because that's something, you know, if you've ever purposefully decided to shoot your own friendly AI units, at some point they will have enough. They see it's like, okay, he's doing this on purpose, he is an enemy now, and we will shoot him, right? And I don't want that to happen in this mission, because the player does need to blow something up, but we need to make sure that the friendlies do not get caught in the blast radius. And so we have our ending 1 and ending 2 triggers over here. Ending 1 checks for trigger caches 1 and trigger caches 2 to be activated. And then the squad leader will say, okay, well done, let's go home. Play sound B9. And then finally, with ending number 2, we have the end 1 call bis function and mission after 5 seconds after ending 1 has been activated. And that will call for the end of the mission, and that's basically the end. And also, because this one checks for ending 1, the first trigger over here, the squad will move on to this next waypoint, basically. So the player will see his squad moving on off to because that's what the player says, right? Let's go home, or the squad leader says, let's go home. So you shouldn't just keep standing there. You should move off and actually go home, or make it look like he's going home, because he's only going another 100 meters down the road. But that's not something the player is ever going to see, right? And finally, there's another thing that I'd like to mention, because I'm running an editor mod actually called Eden Enhanced, I believe. And what's really cool about that is when you go to attributes, I think it's under General. Let's have a look. There's new options available here, right? So we have your presentation. It's called the title of the mission, the offer, which is my name, the overview text, a simple mission where you hunt down enemy weapons caches in the jungle. You could specify an image to be displayed in the overview as well, which is the scenario menu, in the main menu of the game, basically. The same goes for loading screen. As you can see, it's here. Sig Tanoa cache hunt, Tanoa cache hunt .tanoa. So this is the name of the mission folder, and then the load screen .jpeg, right? That's the load screen that's going to be displayed once you load the mission. But what's really cool about this game, or this mod, is they have the intro text and UAV intro, ambient flyby, and all of these extra things that you could have. And with intro text, we have this. The first line is cache hunt, second line by TD&L SIG. So these will be displayed on top of each other. A third line will display the time of the mission, right? So this will be 12 o'clock. You can make this anything you want. Even if it's in the middle of the night, you could say it's like, oh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it will not actually change the time of the day. And this will be activated after a delay of 12 seconds. So basically the UAV intro will start right away. As you can see, I could deactivate it by taking this, or like unchecking this checkbox, but I want this to be activated. And the center position is these coordinates, and these coordinates you can get by using one of the comments, which I'll show you in a bit. You will have the display text, which is Central Tanoa Syndicate territory. You can make this anything you want, and this will be displayed at the beginning of the mission on the top left of the screen over here. You can set the altitude of the camera, or of the UAV camera, basically. You can set the radius of the orbit, which determines in how wide of an angle he is going to turn around the area that you want to have, or that you want the camera to focus at, basically. And you have your viewing angle, which is in what kind of angle you look down on the world, which is by default, I think, the 45 degrees. Right, but again, you can make this anything you want. And finally, you have the direction of, and this is kind of blocked off, but it's the direction of the camera. So you could go along through the right, you could go along through the left. However you want the camera to turn, you can determine here as well. So usually you'd have to do this through scripts in the init.sqf, I think. And that's really cool about this mod for the Eden editor, because it will add a lot of those functions to the UI in the editor itself. So I'm really happy about that. It makes things a lot easier, and it will allow you to make the mod or the mission that you're making to look a lot more like the official Bohemia interactive content, right? But how I got these coordinates, right? So I made a UAV point, or basically you can place a comment everywhere you want by doing this. Just go right click, place comment, and then you can give it a title, right? I don't need this one, so I'm going to delete it again. But if I open this one, you can see the title is UAV point, and that will be displayed like this. And you could have a tooltip as well. So this could be a hint for yourself. So if you want to make a complex mission that's going to take like many hours, and you want to do something but you want to focus on something else first, you might want to make yourself a comment, and then just type in, let's look at this later, something like that, you know, or whatever you want, hints. And when you mouse over this comment, it will actually display what you typed. Let's look at this later. Right, but the best thing about this is also the comment will have a position in the world with its coordinates. So all you need to do is you select this, you copy it by Ctrl+C, right, and then you go to attributes, you go to general, you scroll down, and then you just put Ctrl+V for pasting it. And so you just take the coordinates of your comment, and then the camera will be focused on this point. And let's see, it was so the camera will spawn at the height of 100 meters, I guess, or 100 whatever, on top of this point, and it will slowly move around of this point as well. And you could make this anything you want. So in this case, I did not want the objective to be the point, but I wanted to have something like, I wanted the camera to focus on the mountain that's covered in trees and stuff, to make sure it's like, oh, there's something here, but we don't know exactly where, so you're going in to find out, right? And I think that's basically it. Lastly, I'm going to look at the mission contents folder, but it's not going to show us anything more specific than in my other behind-the-scenes video. But yeah, I'll see you there. Alright, so lastly we're going to have a look at the mission folder. So this doesn't show us anything more than we had previously. We have the sound folder with all of the different sounds and musics. We have the mission.sqm, which every mission will make by default. And if you open it up, it should show you an overview of everything that's being used inside of the mission. So these are all different categories, like the rifles, different weapons, characters, structures. Anything you place down in the mission will be put down here, basically. And sadly, the game auto-saved, and now there is a thing called Desert in here, and that's only because I have the CUP, or like the Community Upgrade Project, activated, this mod that adds like all the official Bohemia interactive maps from every ArmA game previously, or yeah, every previous ArmA game, as well as the original Operation Flashpoint. And one of those maps is a simple desert map, and it will be added automatically to your mission.sqm if you run this mod while making your missions, which is really unfortunate because this mission does not actually use those terrains anymore. So stuff like this is why it's better to make your mission while not running any mods, because you can have things like this happen to you, and it's really annoying. Like, you can get rid of it, but yeah, it's just not something that's very useful to you, right? But there's nothing otherwise that you need to do with the mission.sqm. You never really need to look at it, unless you need to find like mods that were accidentally included, right? I have a little text document that was all about the changes that I made for like patch notes and stuff. So if I make a patch for one of my missions, I usually make one of these little text files that says whatever, or notes all the things that I changed. So in this case, like, I changed all enemies to Syndicate forces because I actually made this mission before the Syndicate forces were on the beta branch, before the official release of the Apex expansion, right? And so we have all the regular CSAT units were displayed or changed to the Pacific versions of CSAT, and we have a lot of this kind of thing. Finally, you have the description.ext, which goes through the offer, what you want to have displayed when the mission is being loaded, and the description. So this is the name of the mission, this is the description of the mission. Then you have your load screen, an overview text for in the scenario menu, in the main menu, the overview picture as well, and finally you can have your the different endings in the debriefing section, or the debriefing class. So I only have one ending, which is, you know, I successfully destroyed my objectives, and it will say you successfully eliminated all hostiles and destroyed the weapons caches, right? And then finally, all of the sounds that I use are being referenced to inside of the description exe, which is important because if you do not do this, you cannot play those sounds in the game, right? Yeah, I have a document about all the different voiceovers that I have in the mission as well. So I can open up that real quick. So this is all the lines for headquarters, all the lines for the squad leader, all the lines for the player. It's not a whole lot, but for some of my missions there are a ton of them. Finally, I have the briefing.sqf, which details all of the different diary records. So you have your basic briefing, then there's another tab called voice acting and music, which is like all the voice acting. Like HQ was done by Sasha, Sergeant Gauban was done by Jesa, Private Gabur was done by me. Then music is from the Tropico soundtrack, which is Leos de mi Tierra by Los Corrales, Wepa Wepa by Lucio Campillo with Daniel Leon, and Brazos de mi Tierra by Barbara Ruiz and Jesus A. Perez, I guess. That's all you need for that. You have the load screen, of course, which is just a screenshot that I took with the in-game camera. And then you have the init.sqf. And in the init.sqf, I call for the briefing.sqf to be executed at the start of the mission, and a few different markers to be made invisible by using set marker alpha 0. And if I wanted to make them visible again during or later on in the mission, which I do not in this one, I could use the same code but replace 0 with 1, and then these markers would become visible on the map again. That's everything that I can show you about this mission. I hope you enjoyed it and found it educational. It's not exactly a tutorial, but there's always little hints and tips and tricks that you can learn from this kind of thing, I hope. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I'll try to make more videos like this.